Okay, so going back to this. So actually we can identify solution A, by the way, because it's a base, and we only have one base that's happening here. So we've looked at the neutral, we've looked at the base as well, right? So because solution A has a pH above 10, we can identify this as being the sodium carbonate. Okay, so now we've got these two acids left. So we need to know a little bit more of the pH in order to make this decision to see which one's stronger. So bromothymol blue is yellow, so that means this is less than 6. Okay, methyl orange, same thing here. Actually, this is going to be less than 6. So obviously they're both acidic, which makes sense. Methyl orange is yellow here. So yellow means that it has to be higher than 4.4. These are all going to be colorless because basically if it's an acid, it's colorless, right? Or neutral. Yeah, we don't really have to explain that because the color change happens like after 8 or something like that. Yeah, 8.2. Okay, so and then solution D in the methyl orange is, oh my gosh, I can't find methyl orange here, is red, which means it is less than 3.2. So actually this gives us most information for these last two. So they're both acids, of course, but one is an acid between the range of 4.4 and 6, and one is between there is lower than that, right? So we know that this has to be lower than 3.2. So solution D is a stronger acid compared to solution C because it's lower. So in order to determine that, you have to look at the Ka values. So the two acids we have, the stronger of the two is going to be our HSO4, and the H2PO4 is pretty weak. So that means here, solution D, which is stronger, is going to be our sodium bisulfite, and then our sodium dihydrogen phosphate is our weaker acid. Okay, so this is a pretty good question because it combines two different topics from chapter 6. Pretty epic, you know. I'm just kidding. Now I'm just delirious talking to myself. Okay. So acid-base titration curves. So a titration curve is basically if you were to take a titration and plot the pH over time as you're adding more and more of your titrant, what you would see in the change of pH. So these are always the same, okay? So your y-axis is always pH. Your x-axis is the volume of titrant added, okay? So in other words, this is the one that's inside your burette. So it's the one that we know the concentration of, okay? Your analyte is what is in the flask, your unknown. Okay, so when we're measuring, the volume is obviously being measured from the burette, right? What's being added. So both of these here that are being shown are strong acid, strong base titration. The only difference is what's inside the burette. So for this first one here, we have a strong acid being titrated with a strong base. So notice what happens, a couple of things. So you have a pretty dramatic change in pH, and then you have this kind of flat part, and then it sharpens up at the top. So this point here that is in between, kind of like if you were to draw out, I didn't do a great job, but if you were to look at this part that's kind of straight and look at the middle point of it, that's where your equivalence point is. Okay, remember that's when your moles of acid are equal to your moles of your base. So for strong acid, strong base solutions, it should always be at an equivalence point of 7. Okay, so the only difference that's happening here, of course, is are we starting with an acid or are we starting with a base? And of course, you can see, you know, obviously by the starting pH and by what's being added to it. Okay. So the strong titration of a monoprotic acid with a strong base will produce a solution at the pH of 7 at the equivalence point. Right? That's because the ions that are produced are not undergoing hydrolysis. Like there's no equilibrium happening here. So this first couple of questions that we're doing for the practice problem are all strong acid, strong base problems, okay? So they're pretty straightforward with things we've already been looking at. So we have here, consider the titration in the above sample problem. So we need the sample problem here. Let me just flip to it. Use an ice table to calculate the pH of the solution in the reaction flask after this volume of this concentration has been added to this. Okay, so this corresponds to 1 drop before the equivalence point. Okay, so we know our formula or our chemical reaction that's happening here. Strong acid, strong base, H2O plus NaCl. Okay. So for the concentration initial, we have to basically figure out what's the concentration after these have been mixed, right? So we have to use our C2 is equal to C1 times V1 over V2 for both the acid and the base, right? We want to know what is the concentration after the mixing has happened, right? So that way we can figure out after we subtract what are the moles that are left over. So the volume here is 49.95. Ooh, I put this as, oh, sorry, doing the wrong thing here. 24.95 mils. And then the added volume. So this is 0.04995 moles per liter for our base. So we're going to do the exact same thing with our acid. So this is 0.100 times 25 mils over 49.95 mils, 0.5005 moles per liter. Okay. So we can see we're going to have some acid remaining in the flask, right? So essentially what it wants us to determine is the pH. Okay. So our NaOH is our limiting reactant. So actually this is going to fully react, right? We're going to have none of that left. Minus 0.04995. We will have some moles of this remaining. So it's, let me subtract that. Okay, so we have 1.0 times 10 to the negative 4 moles per liter left. Right, so once we know what's remaining in solution, we don't have any equilibriums to deal with, so our pH value is going to be equal to negative log of that, which is 4. Now sig figs here, what do we got? 3. So we need 3 decimal points, right, for pH. There you go. So strong acid, strong base. Yeah. So it says use the ICF table again to calculate the pH of a solution in the same flask. Okay, so it's the exact same thing, except of course we have more base that's added. So I'm actually going to have you try this. If you have issues with this, please let me know in class. It's the same thing, same formula. So you do C2 for each one, except in this case you're going to have sodium hydroxide that's left over. So reminder, if you have sodium hydroxide left over, you have to then get the POH, then do 14 minus that to get the pH. Okay, so your final answer here for the pH should be 10. 10.000, okay, or something very close to that. Okay. So part number 3, would you expect the complete neutralization of sulfuric acid by sodium hydroxide in a titration to produce a neutral solution at equivalence point? Why or why not? Okay, so the answer is actually no. Okay, and that's because when you have sulfuric acid that is reacting, oops, okay, so you're really making sodium sulfate and water, okay, like one that's fully reacted. In real life, you know, and I hope you recognize that this is really going to lose and switch one hydrogen at a time. So what we're doing here is we're making sulfate ions. Sulfate ions is an ion that will hydrolyze with water, right, to make HSO4 -1 and hydroxide, right? So because one of the ions that you're making is something that can hydrolyze, because it's the conjugate of a weak acid, it's conjugate base of a weak acid, right? So this goes back again to 6.1. It will not remain as ions in solution. It's going to do this equilibrium. So actually, it's going to produce something slightly basic. Okay, so you're making a weak base there. Okay, so this is what we would do for day 1. I think I'm going to come back to this and do the recordings for day 2 tomorrow night. We'll split this over 2 days. Okay, so I'm going to leave this for now. We're going to look at weak acid, strong base titration curves tomorrow. Tomorrow night I'll do a recording. Okay, good night, everyone.